Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Hartley. This podcast exists to equip and inspire your heart-centered leadership. Every week, we bring interviews with some of the greatest heart sets and mindsets on the planet. I hope the heartprint of our time spent together is that it creates new possibilities for you and all those you come into contact with. If you'd like to explore what we could make possible for you, then head to abty.co.uk/connect and book in a free 30-minute call to begin our journey together. I just want to express a huge amount of gratitude to our sponsors, Exhale Coffee. I have been a big fan of Exhale Coffee since meeting Alex and the team back in 2022. Exhale is the first coffee to be sourced, roasted and lab tested specifically to maximize its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potency. An independent lab test has shown that 1 cup of Exhale Coffee has the same antioxidant power as 1.8 kilos of blueberries or 55 oranges. I'm a huge fan, and Mrs. H loves the decaf, especially because she knows that Exhale use the mountain water decaffeination process, which uses only pure glacial water from the highest mountain in Mexico and no nasty chemicals. Simply head to exhalecoffee.com/ABTY for your special offer. And lastly, before I introduce this week's guest, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It would really help us leave a greater heartprint on this world. On episode 286, what a joy it is to welcome Julie Morin to the podcast. Julie is a respected meditation and mindset coach whose life story is a testament to the power of resilience and self-transformation. After overcoming a chronic illness that left her unable to walk for 4 years, she has made a full recovery and now dedicates her life to guiding others on their paths to wellness. Julie co-founded Envol, a holistic platform dedicated to helping individuals tap into their inner strength, reclaim their power, and transform their lives. Through Envol, she inspires countless people to embark on their own healing journeys and realize their full potential. I hope this conversation with Julie opens your heart and your mind and creates new possibilities for you. There will be someone that is placed on your heart whilst listening to this episode. I'd be grateful if you would share it with them. Here we go, it's episode 286 with Julie Morin. Julie, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you?
I'm really good. Thanks, Ryan. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the chance and opportunity to share my message with your audience and your platform. Thank you so much.
I'm really looking forward to it. I am fascinated by your story. I sense an accent. Whereabouts are you from? Where are you in the world?
I'm from France.
Yeah. Are
I'm
you in
French.
France at the moment?
I am in France. I left when I was 18 years old for many reasons. I traveled the world. I met a Dutch guy in Spain, lived in Holland for over a decade, and he was missing the mountains in Holland. So he decided to move back to France, and now we're in Toulouse, southwest of France.
Nice.
And really, it's very not touristic, but it's an amazing city. So we're really liking it here.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my childhood down just on the bit down near Biarritz. We would go down and camp just on the coast, like Messanges, I think the place is called Messanges. Yeah, I spent a lot of my childhood down on that coast. Very nice part of the world.
Really nice, really nice.
There's something just about the basic, like fresh baguette, fresh cheese, fresh ham. Like there's nothing quite like it. I don't know how you do it, but it's just incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of quality that is brought to, how like the fact that products are local, that they are freshly made. We actually have a bakery near the street where I am. This is in our office in Toulouse, but we have a bakery. The guy makes his bread by hand with filtered water. His filtration system has magnesium in it. So it's this whole osmosis thing, like it's really complex, and he does it by hand because he says that the machine doesn't understand the bread that humans do. It's of course sourdough. He uses Celtic sea salt. Like it's just next level. It's really great.
So today's culture, we might call that biohacking bread, but that's just the way nature intended it to be, right? Just good, pure.
It actually they market it as a superfood actually, because the sourdough makes it very digestible. There's a lot of nutrient actually in this bread. So it's all this, in today's world, we're very extreme about how we see the world. It's like this is bad and this is good, but it's like which quality are we talking about? And coming back to those roots and what our ancestors actually used to eat makes just more sense in the way that we consume our food, that we live our life.
I love that. You are full of life. You are full of vitality. I understand there was a point in your life where that wasn't always the case. Would you mind you sharing us a bit of your story?
Yeah. So, short story. I'm going to do the short version first. I took an antibiotic for a simple urinary tract infection that was very mild. And that antibiotic nearly killed me. It left me 4 years in a wheelchair. I was unable to walk. I was unable to talk. I couldn't do anything on my own. I had to go back to my parents. My dad was taking care of me. He just retired at that time. That was back in 2018. I got sick in 2015, but then in 2018, I hit rock bottom. And I just couldn't take care of myself. I didn't know if I was going to be alive in the morning. I had no answers. And it completely changed my life. So that's the short story. But it actually took 7 years for doctors to pinpoint that this was the reason. Whereas if you actually look on the label of that antibiotic, there's a black box warning. So for anyone listening to this, there's a family of antibiotics that's called fluoroquinolones. They're broad spectrum antibiotics. They're widely used, and yet they come with very, very, very heavy possible side effects. They affect mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy centrals of the cells, which produce ATP, which give us energy. So it created a mitochondrial disease in my body where it just robbed me of all those mitochondria. It kind of damaged them all. And it got me really, really weak to the point that I didn't even have enough energy to wash my own hair, brush my own teeth, like just raise my arm. I couldn't do all that. The only energy I had left was actually to get my heart pumping and just my lungs feeling. So that was how low in energy I was at that time. And I like to allude to it as if I was just a phone that I was just charging, and every time it hits 1%, I would just plug it out. That's how I felt all the time. I was just at 1% of my capacities. So it was a struggle. It was a fight for survival. And what's very interesting is that when you're in that state, you have survival instincts that kick in. And it's very, very interesting because I think in today's world, a lot of people, like, chronic illness is on the rise. We know this. A lot of people are unwell, but it only gets to a point where you're very, very unwell, to the point that you're actually on the verge of dying, that you're going to have to do what you have to do to survive.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are just not sick enough to actually make those changes. A lot of people told me, you're so brave that you did all those things. But I was like, I didn't have a choice. You know?
That's a fascinating observation, isn't it? Because that just becomes the expectation of life. Like I saw something on Facebook the other day. It's just someone, a loose connection, just said, "Oh no, my B12 injection's been delayed. Please, like," and it's become so normal to this state of low, I guess, low vibration living, isn't it? It's that low state where people just that's just life. That's just normal, and you know, and I think that's a bit of a tragedy, isn't it? It's a bit of a travesty. You know, you talk. It's very. I think it's very interesting for listeners to be able to hear you now on the other side of this journey. Clearly, you've been through this. You're on the other side of it. You've gained the wisdom. You've gained all the things. But man, 7 years is a long time. And I imagine, like, in the very early days, if you can take us back to the very early days, you know, how did this symptom first start to manifest? And then what was the initial reaction from, like, your traditional kind of pharmaceutical medical care?
Right. So I took the antibiotic, and for 2 weeks, nothing happened. My UTI went away. I even went skiing with my family in the Alps. And then 2 weeks later, I was doing some yoga on the floor, some exercises, and then my whole body went into a full paralysis. I couldn't move my legs anymore. And, you know, like, when you can't move your legs and you're 25 years old at the time, it's very, very scary. So I was rushed to the ER. I was living in Rotterdam back then in the Netherlands. And then for 2 weeks, they ran a lot of checks, you know, they did everything possible. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, they were like, well, they didn't make the link with the medication. Although, like, it's so obvious now, it's so incredibly obvious. Like, I had a room full of 40 students that I was on the stage, and they were like, scratching their head, just like, what could it be? It's just, and I think it's part of my journey that they didn't find out, because it would have been completely different. And I see now, I see this as an opportunity for growth. But back then it was very difficult. And at the end of the 2 weeks, they were like, well, it must be in your head. And I think a lot of people hear this, you know, doctors can't find, it's like your blood works really great. It must be just in your head. And they just dismiss this. And I think I love anything that is psychology like linked to psychology. There's a lot of psychosomatic experiences that you can have that are so traumatic for the body that it actually expresses itself in terms of symptoms. And this is very valid. There's cases of people that saw horrible things happen in front of their eyes and got blind because of it. Like the body protects itself. It's a constant mechanism of protection, right? But then they dismiss it. And I think that's the part where I mind the most, because it's like, well, you just deal with it. They don't give you the tools actually and the keys to do that. So they told me that, and I'm a very open-minded person. So I was like, you know what? Okay. I had some traumatic event in my life before. I lost my little sister in a car accident. I was like, maybe all of this is just piling up. It's just hard, you know, I have to talk about it with the psychologist. So I did 2 years of that. And at the end of the 2 years, I loved it because I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about the relationship with my parents, with a lot of different things, but I wasn't walking still. So I had to continue looking, you know, further. So I went back into the medical system and I found this doctor who was quite known in the US. He helped the mom of Bella Hadid and Gigi Hadid, Yolanda Hadid, who had Lyme disease and ME/CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, which is like kind of like the same symptoms of mitochondrial impairments in the body. And he helped her. So I read her book. I went to this doctor in Belgium and I paid 4,000 euros out of my own pocket. And he told me that I had Lyme disease. And my first reaction was happiness, because the first thing I thought was, oh my God, people are going to start believing me. I'm not crazy. It's not just in my head. There's something really wrong with my body. And that's why I feel like shit. Like, that's why I feel like this. And at that time, I was at 30% of my capacity. So he misdiagnosed me with Lyme disease. I started taking a treatment. And mind you, the real reason why I got sick was antibiotics, right? He put me on an 18-month treatment with antibiotics. It was a different family of antibiotics, but I was already very weak. And I started getting really, really sick after that. So I went from 30% to 1%, and that's really when I hit rock bottom.
Wow.
So, you know, I think we all reach a point in our life where we try, and then there's one moment when we just can't take it anymore and we have to make a decision. Like, it's that survival kick, you know, that just comes in and you're like, okay, I have to change what I'm doing, because the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I was like, if I'm going to continue doing this, I'm going to die. So I have to change. And I remember I had a conversation with that doctor where we called on the phone and I had all these questions. He was like, why aren't you here? I was like, I'm so sick. I can't even move. Like, of course I'm not at your practice. And the conversation lasted 4 minutes. I had all these questions and his answer was, I'm going to send you a new list of medication to take. And that's when I remember hanging up the phone and seeing this 4-minute number on the phone. And I was like, I am done. That's it. I'm not going to give my power away. There's no one that's going to come save me. I knew that in my heart. It was like, I just got that knowledge instantly in me, that certainty of like, no one is going to come to help me. If I want to survive, I have to find a different route. And it was a pivotal moment in my journey.
You're the second person to say that in the last 5 episodes. This pivotal moment where it's like no one's going to save you, and you know, for people that have a victim mindset, that can be the very reason to give up. But in fact, if we use it in the right way, it is the very reason to start showing up for ourselves. And yeah, so how did things start to improve? Like, what's the first like glimmer of hope that you started to receive?
Well, that was in itself a glimmer of hope. And I think you mentioned just being in a victim mindset. And I think, you know, as there are stages with grief, for instance, that we all know, I think when you deal with a chronic illness or something's not going well with your health, there is always going to be that victim mindset at the beginning. It's almost like a necessary step. Where you go on forums and you kind of like find this community and other people, and it's like, look, you know, they're not listening to us, doctors are not doing this for us, or they're like you know, you try to pinpoint the fault on somebody else, because I think it's a human trait. We all need this at the beginning. But then you have this choice to really shift to, you know, from a victim to a creator mindset, to like, well, I have the power to actually change something in my life. And that 4-minute conversation really sparked that hope in my life, because I was like, I need to find another route. And that's truly when epigenetics came into my life. So epigenetics is how the environment around us actually has the power to influence our health, our longevity, and even the expression of our genes. And it's the environment that is around us, outside of us, but also inside of us. And I'm saying this now, but it wasn't like on the moment I was like, oh my God, epigenetics is the way. I just kind of like it was almost like as if it was a puzzle. And every part of that puzzle was about that environment, and somehow combining it all together. And it took years, of course, but then it completed the puzzle after a few years, and I found my health back, complete vitality, and even better than I ever was before. And I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about talking about epigenetics and how we can create that environment outside of us and inside of us to actually feel, oh my God, so empowered every single day and become the creator of our life in all aspects.
Were there any particular authors, speakers, teachers that really kind of like set your heart and mind on fire?
Yeah, I started with a lot of different things, but really sleep, food, and just like the outside environment. So I started actually with medical medium, because he taught me about food and he gave me hope with different stories. I don't follow his teachings anymore, but it did help me at the time. So on the outside environment, there was just a lot of different influences that I had that I don't necessarily follow today to the letter, but it did help me in the past. And then on the inner environment, around meditation, around the law of attraction, around the power of belief, of thoughts. There were so many authors that truly, truly changed my mind. Just to name a few: Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden.
They're almost
Yes.
like the three grandfathers of
Yeah,
this topic, aren't
exactly.
they? We've been very fortunate to have Dr. Bruce on the podcast twice. So
Amazing.
epigenetics
Amazing.
is a familiar concept with the audience. You're speaking directly to their hearts absolutely right now. I understand that there's a term called floxed that is now the definition. But what was that, and how did that first come into your awareness that this thing called floxed is an experience that you've been having?
Right. So being floxed means that you've been injured by a fluoroquinolone antibiotic. This is the medical term that is known now. So it was a few years ago when I felt like I thought I had Lyme disease and I was kind of like hitting a plateau in my health journey. And I consulted with a French naturopath, and the first thing he told me when I told him about my life story was like, you don't have Lyme disease. I thought it felt almost as if I fell off my chair, and I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, you're going to tell me it's in my head, like you too. And he was like, no, your symptoms are really, really similar to those of being floxed. You have to look it up. And that's when it just
Wow.
opened the whole world of that. And I think in the world of people being floxed, they tell you you can't recover. It's not something you normally recover from. Most of the people will try to bring awareness, and it's a beautiful mission. They will try to bring awareness about this horrible medication that is still given today. I get a message every day, almost on my Instagram, of
Wow.
somebody telling me my doctor wanted to give it to me, and I said no because I know your story. Thank you for potentially saving my life. So there's this identity that people take on of like, I'm going to be a spokesperson about this topic and I'm going to raise awareness. But when you do that, vibrationally, you stay I've been in the spirit of I've been injured and I'm a victim. And
Mm.
I needed to get out of that mindset as much as possible. And so I want to be the living proof that says, well, whatever you think, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right,
You're
right?
right.
Henry Ford says it's
Yeah.
such a powerful quote of
Mm.
like, well, what you put your mind on will actually become reality. Like your inner world, your inner vibration is actually going to attract more of the same in your outer world. And I live by this every single day. So even though there's no possible cure for this or you can't get better, well, I'm the living proof that you can.
It's mad, isn't it? Like all these products and side effects. And I heard something the other day that just said that all those list of side effects is your body's saying, "Hey, you've been poisoned."
Yeah,
That's mad,
exactly.
isn't it? It's mad. So, what is the like? Let's revisit it. Well, I think you might have said it briefly earlier, but what were the effects on your body? What was the toxicity that this what was it called? Ciprofloxacin,
Yeah, Cipro.
Floxax,
Well, it was
Ciproflox.
yeah, it was pretty much like, so you have Cipro in fluoroquinolones and you have Levaquin. Levaquin is more known to injure your tendons. So people will walk and their tendon will just flap. And then Cipro is more muscular. So
Right.
if you're starting having muscle issues or just fatigue, just really tired, no
Mm.
energy, your muscles are just not recovering as they should. You also have night terrors, hallucinations, cognitive impairments. I couldn't read a book for years. So when I
Mm.
started actually learning about those pillars of health in my outer environment that I could start implementing, I had to go it was baby steps because my brain power was very, very limited, sensitive to sounds, to lights. I think your nervous system is just extremely, extremely sensitive. I couldn't
Wow.
handle talking with someone because there was just too much energy, and energy I did not have at the time.
That's mad, isn't it? Because I see some people in my network as well. That the chronic fatigue story is, I guess it's kind of a lonely place because it's people don't understand, and I guess do even understand it yourself, like how, because I think we grow up and we grow up and have to have a trust in the Western world, the Western medicine, the Western doctor. I think it's built that way. We can go back as far as the Rothschilds and all that sort of stuff in America, and how that kind of is found its way into our culture. But it's quite a scary place for people to be. If I can't trust my pharmaceutical, if I what else can't I trust? And it's I guess the first step is almost breaking free, or stepping outside of there has to be a different way. There's something that trusting my own experience, rather than the so-called, you know.
Definitely, and I think it's a tricky topic because there are a lot of very good doctors and they want to
Yeah.
do good, and it's their mission to actually, that oath that they take, right, to actually help others. I think it's really merging their knowledge of the human body with your own experience. And I think the one thing that really chronic illness has taught me is that your body speaks to you to just deliver a message. And this is something that I understood actually quite recently, and I'd love to share it with you, is that we all have, there's pretty much just two entities of ourselves. The first one is the thinking self, the ego, who we think we are, the constructed self, right?
Mm.
Who society expects us to be, how we want to be to please others, who we were constructed on all those beliefs that we just created from past experiences,
Mm.
childhood, just events that happen to us, things that happen to us. And then there's the real us, our soul's essence, who we are in our core. When you speak to someone and their eyes just light up, who they are in the inside, which really, really, really feed their soul. And then
Mm.
those two entities, the larger the gap, the more the body is going to start talking in the only language it knows, which is
Yes.
symptom or pain. It's literally going
Mm.
to pick up the phone and say, hey, there's a gap between those two people. You're not being who you are. And I think I was watching Thor, one of the Thor movies
Yeah.
last night with him, and Thor's mom, she sits him down, like it's the episode where, like the movie where he's very lost, he's a bit overweight, and he sees his mom, and then she sits him down and she tells him the measure of a person, of a hero, is how well they succeed at being exactly who they are.
Oh, come on.
And I
Come on,
love
Thor's mum.
right? I love that because it's really, are you wearing a mask? Are you being yourself based on who you're not supposed to be? And I think consciously it's very difficult because Bruce Lipton even says this. The way we live our life is only led by the conscious mind with 5%, right?
Yes.
95% of how we live our life is led by the subconscious. And a belief, and when we talk about beliefs, it's interesting to look at core beliefs about
Mm.
ourselves that we create through past experiences. A belief is just a thought that is repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
So those core beliefs about ourselves, a core belief can be I'm not enough or I don't deserve love, that is created from an experience that maybe we don't even have a hold on.
Mm.
It's going to vibrationally in our inner world, in ourselves, it's going to emit. And it's 95% of how we live our life is led in the subconscious, and this core belief is located in the subconscious mind. So you're going to emit this, and that's the
Yes.
constructed you. That's who you think you are, and you're just constantly wearing this mask. Whereas if you bridge that gap, then the body will not have to leave all those messages. It's
Yeah.
literally just speaking with the phone, right? And saying like,
Yeah.
hey, listen, you're not taking the right direction right now. You're just mistaken.
Yeah. And what you said earlier around the ego is the ego wants to prove itself right. And you know, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Well, if you have that core belief and that program that says you are not worthy, you are not good enough, you are not someone who could do that, you're not capable, well, guess what? The ego is going to take great pride in saying, see, I told you.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's
But
a
this,
very there's a huge amount of accountability to that. And I think Bruce
yeah.
Lipton used to say, you are responsible for everything. And then he caveated it only when you realize that you are responsible for everything. It's almost like, okay, now you've got the 5% conscious awareness, you're responsible for everything. Now you are responsible for everything.
Right. It's really bringing those unconscious, deeply rooted beliefs to the surface and being aware. And that's the first step in everything, just being aware of this. And yeah, that's very true. And I think one of our aspects as a human being also is that with those core beliefs, like we're made of those beliefs, like this just makes who we are. Our
Mm,
brain is always going to try to find evidence in our outer world to confirm those beliefs, which
yeah.
is so
Yeah.
incredibly interesting because we want to be like, see exactly what you just said,
Yeah.
like I'm not
Yeah.
enough. There's 99, I give a piano recital, there's 99 people that's going to say, oh my god, you were so amazing. But if
Yeah.
my core belief is I don't think I'm enough, then the one person is going to say the sound wasn't enough, loud enough, or see, that was really bad. And then you kind of like self-harm yourself with those thoughts.
Mm, yeah. Powerful, isn't it? There's a wonderful blog on your website that talks about your floxed protocol and your healing protocol, and you said earlier that the bread is made with like magnesium in the water. Like magnesium was like the top thing on that list. And what is it about magnesium? Why is that such an important mineral?
So in the case of being floxed, actually, the doctors tell you that when you take a fluoroquinolone antibiotic, so Cipro, for instance, and you take magnesium at the same time, it will diminish the effects of the antibiotic. So it's important to not take them at the same time. So it's literally the antidote. Um, on a like biological
Mm,
level, I'm not sure how exactly magnesium works to repair mitochondria. And I know that magnesium has like 3,000 functions in the body. It's an extremely important
mm,
supplement to take.
mm,
I think also because our soils are depleted today and we
mm,
live a life that is extremely stimulated, extremely stressed today. Our modern way of living is just not what it was before. So magnesium is one of the first things that they advise when you want to improve your mitochondrial health, your energy,
mm, mm.
to replenish on that. To be honest, I tried a lot of supplements on my
Yeah.
journey. I think, yeah, I was
Well,
spending
I'm kind
time
of there at
with
the, you know, about a month ago, I started to take about 3 different supplements, and my energy's never been, you know, greater. In terms of I'm not getting that kind of 3, 4 o'clock lull of fatigue. But the problem
interesting.
I have is I've got 3 different things. It's like I'm not sure which one is
What are you
having.
taking?
So I'm taking magnesium and zinc at nighttime, a bit D3 and K2, I think it is, and a bit of cod liver oil. And every now and again, I'll take.
Yes. The
Pardon?
oil.
Cod liver,
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah,
then
interesting. So pretty much
uh,
vitamin E, right?
yeah, and then I'll take Shilajit as a pre-workout before I work
Mm.
out. So I've got this like stack now, and I'm like, which one is doing which? And I don't really care now because like my energy is really good. I can't be. It seems to be like it's been over about 6 weeks now where I'm not getting that lull. So clearly something.
Interesting, very
Yeah.
interesting. And I think everything that you're taking now is really what is usually advised for energy production. Shilajit is an amazing supplement that is full of minerals. I think it has almost all the minerals that the human body needs to function. You have to get
Mm,
a really good quality of it, but it's
mhm.
good. So for those who don't know, it's a black resin that is harvested from rocks, the mountains, that is really,
Yeah.
really rich in this earthy minerals. D3 is also really good for that, K2 as well, zinc and magnesium as well, and vitamin E also as well for my, they're all in my floats protocol. So
They
it's
are,
really,
yes.
yeah, they are. They're all there.
As well as sunlight. But we're
Sunlight
being
is,
we're being told that sunlight's bad for us.
yeah, well, it's the thing is sunlight has oxidizing effects on our body. But the great thing is if you eat nourishing foods that are very rich in antioxidants, things like or properties like blueberries or like just a lot of fruits, a lot of colorful rainbow-like non-processed organic local foods, they will provide you the antioxidants that you need to actually mitigate the effects of the
Yeah.
sun. And this is something that I've started when I started my journey with getting nourished from all these pillars on my outside environment. I started with food, but there was also sleep and there was also sunlight. And there's actually a photobiologist called Alexander Wunsch. He's Austrian, I think, who said that 1/3 of the energy that we produce is actually coming from food. So 2/3 is coming from something else.
I
Which
believe
is
that.
insane. You know, we would think 100% is coming from the food that we eat. It's literally the building blocks of everything that we do. So a part of that 2/3 is actually from the sunlight that we consume. So
I believe that.
this has been instrumental in my journey even today with adjusting my circadian rhythms and my cortisol productions and all these things. And even the way I feel, my mood, the fact of consuming natural sunlight. And a lot of people will say, oh, but it's always cloudy where I am. It doesn't matter. There's a kind of recipe of light that is available at every moment of the day. And when you look at LED lighting, it never changes in intensity or in color. It's always the same. So if you're looking at a LED light, a cold LED light at 12 at noon in the day where you need the most, where you normally have the most energy, it's fine. But if you look at it in the morning or in the night, you don't need that exact recipe of light. So stepping outside, opening your eyes first thing in the morning or in the evening is essential. And a lot of people just brush this off, you know, they're like, oh, well, I prefer to take supplements, or I prefer, well, my advice is always to people, do not take supplements until you create that outer environment that is always free. That outer environment is free, sunlight is free, sleep is free, movement is free. Healthy food, I mean, I know it's not free and I know it's expensive now with inflation and all these things, but if you look at it in nature, nature provides, right? Nature provides. You can have an apple tree with an amazing amount of apples on that tree and it is for free, like it's what nature provides for. So this is really important to implement those things first before actually playing the little chemist and trying to be like, oh, if I change this or if I change this, and spending a lot of money into those things and not even knowing what it does really.
So much of the biohacking movement is about going back. It's like we've gone to a point of evolution where we're like, no. It's like that chart of the monkey that becomes a man, and the man's like, no, fucked it. Let's go back. Like, we've got some things wrong. Like, let's go back a few steps. Because I think that's the biohacking movement, is getting back to simplicity, getting back to nature. And along with it comes this wonderful belief that when I learn to live in harmony with nature, that is when growth and healing takes place. And that is a very powerful mindset to then put. I'd say it's a heart set, it's a belief structure, it's a belief system that is, I truly believe that I am capable, with the divine intelligence in me and around me, of healing being my natural state.
I love that. And that's an inner shift. And if there's one thing that I like, my personal opinion about the biohacking movement is that I see them all trying to have the perfect days, right? It's kind of like an extreme from where most people are, and they're on the other end of the, you know, that spectrum, and they're just trying to micromanage their day so that it's extremely perfect in all aspects. And I think they spend a lot of time focusing on that outer environment, but what about this inner environment? What about gratitude, joy, just all those inner feelings that are so important? And I think love and gratitude are the strongest force in the universe. And reconnecting, indeed, as you said, to this healing ability, this healing power that we all have within us. We're born with it. We're born with this ability to heal. Like our brain, even neuroplasticity is actually amazing when you look at it, right? Like our brain has the ability to reshape, to restructure itself according on what you expose it to. Isn't it like mind-blowing? Your brain changes constantly according to your experiences. And the brain doesn't know the difference between what is real or what is imagined. So you can actually take that ability, that gift, to make your brain think some events are happening when they're not happening in real. Your brain will restructure itself, and your inner world will start reflecting on your outer world, and your reality, your change, and that's how you change your life. And not a lot of people just understand the power of this inner shift, and they're just stuck on the outer environment of like, oh, if I eat one little piece of like crumb of gluten, I'm gonna die. Well, no, you're so strong. You can literally eat a, like Wim Hof, right? The Dutch guy, the Iceman. He injected himself with a virus and he did not have any symptoms because he decided he will not have a symptom. We are so powerful. And for me, the inner environment is what really dictates everything.
At what point in your journey did you go, I need to share this journey and this healing with other people? At what point did you start to birth Envol?
So I started sharing, I created an Instagram account on my journey because I felt very lonely at the beginning. No one understood what was going on. I was judged a lot. And that's very difficult when you're a people pleaser from birth, and then
Yeah.
people start disliking you and not liking what you do, and you're like, well, I have no choice, and they don't understand.
Yeah.
So I created my Instagram account, and thank God for hashtags, because I could find other, ladies my age across the globe, in Australia, in the US, and Canada, that actually were living the exact same thing as I did. So we started connecting, and we can't ignore the power of community. We're social creatures, and having this group, this almost this identity of a group really helped. And then a few years later, I told Tim, my partner, my fiance now, that I would love to create something that would help people, because my whole point, my whole aim at life was to gain energy in everything that I was doing. And I was like getting some tools from here and some tools from here and some tools from here. And I was like, how amazing would it be to combine everything so that one person that would need it, that would be in the predicament that I was a few years ago, would actually access everything. And then we started creating Envol. Envol is a French word which means a bird taking flight. So it's a beautiful,
Yeah.
yeah.
My episode that went out this week was Uncaged, which is literally the
Yeah,
idea of a bird taking
amazing.
flight. So there's definitely some synchronicities coming on with my guests at the
Yeah.
moment. That's very, very powerful. What does Envol represent to other people? And what does Envol make possible for, for you effectively when you needed it most,
Yeah.
nearly 10 years
So
ago now?
yeah, exactly. So I got extremely lucky to have a partner, so Tim, who stood by my side, who believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself,
Yeah.
who literally told me the motto, happiness equals reality minus expectations. Everyone
Ooh,
had
come on.
expectations about what a 27-year-old couple should look like. Well, it shouldn't look like a guy pushing a wheelchair. It should look different. You should go on holiday. You should do all those things. And I told him, I said, well, we can't go on holiday. I'm in a wheelchair. He was like, why can't we? I said, well, I might just stay on the balcony of that hotel looking at the sea the whole time. And he was like, well, then we'll do that and we'll have an amazing time.
Yeah, come on, Tim.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
he taught me how to just enjoy the moment, the present moments. And thanks to that love and that support, I could have enough energy to actually create Envol. So what Envol is pretty much a Tim to everyone. It's a guide that helps you access your inner power, your inner ability to heal. And that's really our motto, our mission, is to reconnect you with that power that's inside of you that you might have lost hope on, because it is there, it is inside of you, and there are ways that you can activate it, that you can speed up that process. And where I'm passionate about meditation, meditation is something that helped me so much on my journey. When I started meditating, I felt like I took morphine, so much it eased and lowered the pain. And I was like, wait, there's a whole world in my brain that I haven't experienced. And
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was an inner environment before. I thought it was just, sleep, food, like all those outer things. And it just opened the door. And I've been just doing 3 steps in that door, to be honest. There's a mountain of things to discover, and
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about it.
I I love that. I've been on a similar journey to you, not for the same reasons. I think for me, I got onto this journey because of that crazy pandemic, that thing that happened a few years ago. I was surrounded by some crazy people at a gym where we would jump in cold rivers and do crazy things like breath work, and it just got me into the world of Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, and so I started to get into this, and I have a faith, I have a Christian faith, so I merge all that together with this belief that when I connect with God, like the healing power within me, right? So I started to embrace that, and some of it I can understand why fasting is a spiritual practice, but it's also a healing practice. And I went 7 days without eating food, and something crazy happens when you give yourself, like when you said like you get energy from the sun. I'm like, yeah, I believe you, because I certainly wasn't eating food for 7 days and I felt all right. I was still able to do a 5K run at the end of the fast. a very bizarre experience to give myself. Not one I credit myself for, not one my ego can take credit for, but it was a purely of this thing I can't see, this spiritual aspect. And I really truly believe that what you're saying to be true is you got to create the environment for your body to heal. So anytime I get a little bit of sickness, I'll first look at myself and go, what did I subject myself to? What is it in me and around me that I have not, taken not control of, 'cause it's not about control, but it's what have I not?
Facilitated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
have I been a bit stressed? Have I not slept well enough? Have I eaten too late? I start to look at how am I living, first and foremost, because there's always a clue. There's always a nudge back home to go, right, okay, well, what is the environment I need to create for me
I
to
love that.
to heal?
I love that you have that awareness, because I think a lot of people will quickly go like, well, my life's good. I have this annoying symptoms, like my body's being annoying. How do I shush it as fast as possible? How do I just take a pill and then boom, continue with my life?
Mm.
Just yesterday with Tim, we were watching a real estate show, like that Sydney real estate thing on Netflix. And the guy just discovered he had like a skin cancer on his skull. And he just said like, oh, I'll just go schedule an appointment, get it removed, boom, done, continue with my life.
Yeah,
Well, you're missing the point. You're missing the whole point of the message. And if
the
you continue doing
invitation. Yeah.
that, your body will send more messages,
Yes.
until it will just go from whispers to shouting, and it will just freeze you so that you have to take action and bridge that gap, right, between who you think you are and who you really are. And I love what you
Yeah.
said about fasting, because we live in a society that constantly, every day, reminds us that we're not enough, we're not complete.
Mm, mm,
Constantly, a
mm.
society that nourishes this feeling of lack in us,
100%.
right?
Yes.
So when you fast and you actually reconnect to yourself, reconnect to your intuition, to that power within you,
Mhm.
you're like, holy moly, I'm so powerful. And that's
I
scary
lack
for a
nothing.
lot of people, right? That's why it's also not. There's a lot of like, there's Nobel Prizes that were found on fasting, right? That creates autophagy, like cells actually destroy themselves, cells that are sick, and it
Yeah.
creates renewal. It's actually increasing longevity. And even if fasting is not available for everyone, because when you're very, very ill, it might just take too much on your body if you don't have the
Mm.
resources to make up for that. But even lowering the quantity of the food that you eat, so many studies
Mm.
have shown that longevity, like you're actually living longer if you're eating less calories, right? Nobody talks about this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And even so, I went to the Health Optimization Summit about 3 years ago, and there was a speaker, I can't remember his name, but he talked about the circadian rhythm, and he talked about how having a time restricting eating window. So most people call it intermittent fasting, but he said a time restricted eating window. And he says that the ideal is to narrow that down to as close to 8 or 6 hours as possible. And that epigenetic argument is that you're either digesting or you're resting and recovering. Like that is either an on-off switch. So for as long as we've got food in our system, our body is not doing the healing, and it's such a powerful thought, isn't it? Like, oh, okay, so the very essence of my body healing itself is not because it's got another job to do at that point. And even just that fundamental understanding, it's like, because we don't want to be told what to do. We don't want to be told when we can eat. Like that's the opposite of a free society, right? But the reality is the freedom we get now knowing that and being disciplined to the practice of give your body what it needs to flourish, and I guess that's what you're offering with your
Yeah,
wonderful app.
exactly. And I love that you're sharing this. Was it Tim? Tim something? Tim
Tim
Shaw?
Gray's
Great, great. Yeah, it was
yeah,
he's
it's his
the
health optimization
yeah,
summit, yeah.
exactly. Um, well,
Dr. Sachin Panda was the speaker.
okay, interesting. I find it very interesting because indeed spending more time in this healing state during the day and activating that healing state can be very interesting. And with food, it definitely is, but it's a part of a puzzle, right? It's like everything is just a piece of that puzzle, because if you do that and you don't have food in the morning, for instance, because you're extending that window, but then you're going to engage in very high cognitive activities or high stress, or you're stuck in traffic, you're defeating the purpose, because your body cannot heal in that state either. It will have more energy actually to do that, but you will release cortisol and actually just have limiting effects on the benefits it could bring. So I think it's always combining and understanding that there is a state that our body heals the most.
Yeah.
100%. And we have different ways of accessing that. But when you combine all of that state together, so when your body's resting that on a digestion level, when you're accessing lower brain state waves, right? Like altered state of consciousness, when you're just doing different, like if you're meditating, for instance, it's just a whole new aspect where you just associate all those benefits, and it's like a rocket, like you go there really, really quickly.
I know one of the key things to your healing was about visualizing you in a healed state. I know that not everybody can engage with visualization. Some people like have a barrier to it. Sometimes they project the negative. Like, how was that for you? Obviously, it was a very powerful part of your journey, so you were clearly able to visualize the present state. But was there a barrier to begin with? Did you find it hard? Like, what did you have to persist with it?
So visualization is something that's extremely powerful. I think it started with a guy called Alan Richardson in 1967, an Australian psychologist who actually took maybe you know this study, three
Nope.
basketball teams, and he asked the first team to actually practice free throws for 20 minutes each day. The second team, he asked them to practice the free throws, but in their mind only, without actually practicing. And the third group was a control group. He asked them to do neither. And the result was that at the end of the week, the second group, who actually just practiced in their minds, improved in the same way that the first group. So it really actually tells you that when you visualize something, you activate what's called body memory in your body, and you actually can increase a muscle mass just thinking about it. So the power that we hold in our mind with visualization is extremely important. Like what we visualize, our body just follows. It sets the direction. When visualization becomes difficult and complicated is when there's a core belief that goes against that. My core belief that I created from the trauma of this experience with fluoroquinolones was, if I walk, so core belief is usually X and Y. It's conditional. So if I walk, I might die because there's immense pain, and so the result is, because the subconscious, the body will always try to protect you. That's his job, right? That you survive. So if I walk, I die. So I actually it starts being impossible to walk. So it protects me this way. But when you start healing and you start being like, well, I can walk now, I should be able to walk, you have that belief that come block you. And you start doing all these visualization exercises, you start visualizing yourself walking, and you don't believe a word of it.
Yeah.
Because your
Yeah.
core belief is, I can't walk, right?
Yeah.
So you have to actually do some brain retraining. You have to get to this lower state of what we call theta brain states, right? Hypnosis. Get there, change the why, right? The X says, if I walk, and then change that into, it will be wonderful, it will be possible,
Yes.
it will be
Yes.
easy. And once you change this, so it's not an easy job, but when you know actually the way to doing this, it took me 3 weeks to learn how to do this. And in full honesty, that was such a big thing for me, because I stayed 4 years in a wheelchair, that I had to break it down into smaller steps.
Yeah.
So there was a movement that I wanted to do of leaning, like going on the floor and stepping back up, and it was requiring a lot of my thighs, a lot of my muscles. I just focused on that movement itself. So
Yeah.
I visualized me doing that movement, and then I felt pain, and I was like, no, go back to it. Visualizing that movement, feeling pain, no, go back to it. So it was kind of like a mental exercise of like, go back to it. And then it took me 3 weeks. I did it 2 hours every day. And at the end of the 3 weeks, I could replace the pain element by, oh my God, it's possible.
Oh,
And at the
come
end
on.
of the 3 weeks, I could do that movement.
That's powerful. I was listening to the work of Neville Goddard a couple of weeks ago, and he wrote it in a kind of poetic way, which is like that emotional feeling that we have, almost like of who we are, that gets handed to, he calls the subconscious, the female subconscious, the queen of your, and he basically says she receives that blueprint of, okay, this is who we say we are. And then what she'll do is that she'll keep that and give you the blueprint for your next day. It's like, okay, I receive who you genuinely believe you are. Therefore, I will print out, like Bruce Lipton says, your life is a printout of your beliefs. Your
Like a
life is
feedback
a,
loop.
right, right. And when you start to look around at your life and you go, this is all a printout of what I truly believe. Some people go, no, it's not. Well, unfortunately, yeah, this is the power of the subconscious mind, and So what sort of things? I downloaded the app recently, and I was sat here working yesterday, listening to the sound of the rainforest, which was quite nice. Thank you for that. So what sort of things, if I go onto the app, will I be able to access? What can the listeners find out and experience for themselves?
Yeah, so in the app, we have a toolbox that helps you find the right tool for you because we're all different. We all have different schedules and we don't necessarily have affinities with the same type of tools. So for that reason, we created a lot of different diverse tools to fit everyone. So there's in the toolbox, there's an audio category, an affirmation category, and a breathwork category. The audio category has 4 different subcategories, soon 5. We're going to start launch another one in December. But the first one is guided meditations. So it's just a voice guiding you. There's activating meditations where you're going to use that power visualization to attract what you want in your life. And there's restorative meditations when your nervous system is so fried that all you need is like a hug. So it's a nervous system hug where it's very, very soothing. Then you have 3D sound journeys, and 3D sound journeys, that's the one that you listen to, are a little gem. We spent between 6 months to a year to actually create only one.
Wow.
We've worked with musicians from Disney. We have an amazing composer from Iran that is absolutely amazing. And those 3D sound journeys are for people who are too sick to travel or that want to escape in some way, because as we said, the brain cannot make the difference between what is real or what is imagined. So if you visualize yourself in a forest, hearing bird song, and bird song actually on a physiological level, when you hear bird singing in a forest, it means there's no danger, because birds will not sing if there's danger. They will be quiet. So associating, it's almost like it's actually exactly like a belief. If I hear birds singing, then I'm safe. So it reinforces that feeling of safety, reduces cortisol. So just that, it's actually really beneficial. And we've included the Schumann resonance, the frequency of the earth, which is 7.83 hertz, in every one of the tracks, which is set on the theta range. So when you're listening to this, your brain, it's almost like a passive meditation where it's almost like, here, I'm going to take your hand, I'm going to bring you to that state.
I'm going to ground you. I'm going to ground you.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you into harmony.
Yeah, it brings you to that state where you're in the subconscious in that state.
Yeah.
It's a state where repair is the highest in the body.
Yeah.
Cell repair. So when you're in that state, if they're 22 minutes long, the 3D sound journeys, if you lie down, you put this on your ears, you go to theta. It's hard sometimes to go to theta because you have so many thoughts. And for people who are not used to meditating, it's very, very difficult to get to that state. But it gets you to that state with a 3D effect also that is kind of like massaging your brain hemispheres, massaging your vagus nerve. And you will get to that state and you will really experience 22 minutes of body repair, of cell repair, which is why I love those tools so much, because they're very, very, it's like a therapy. Then we have visualization music. There's short musics that are very orchestral. I love to listen to them when I'm walking because I'm visualizing myself as my future self. Every single thing I visualize came true in my life. Every single thing. It's spooky. It's really spooky. And the last thing is frequencies. Solfeggio frequencies. So we're using binaural beat method and tuning method with our instruments. We actually created a software just for this subcategory, where we're using a Rife database where we're using frequencies and tuning all our instruments to this frequency that is known to have an effect on matter. Pretty much. So we can get very specific with migraines. We have a frequency for migraines. It works like a charm. After 10 minutes, the migraine is gone. It's crazy. So it's very non-invasive, and it's great. And 1st of December, we're launching our last category, which is going to be subliminals. And we're going to retrain the brain with this category. So it's going to be just really straight to your core belief. And you're going to repeat to yourself how amazing you are in a 15-minute long audio. And I've tried on a lot of my clients, and it's just amazing how quickly your behaviors can change after that.
Yeah. One of the first subliminals that I ever saw was on Dexter's Laboratory. Do you remember the cartoon as a kid? There's Dexter's Laboratory. He went to sleep trying to learn French, and the tape got stuck, and he woke up the next day, and the only thing he could say was omelette du fromage.
This is so funny.
Yeah. I thought I'd share that with you.
I love this actually because Jose Silva, he's a man who wrote I don't know if you know him, the mind control method, who was like 500,000 people over the world. It was in this back in the 90s, I think. He actually learned about hypnosis and this altered state of consciousness, and he put
Yeah.
his kids into those states when he was teaching them at school, and all their grades improved
Come on.
because he was teaching them in a state that is actually the subconscious, right? So falling asleep with something, you're just accessing your super brain. Your brain is so much more powerful when you're in that state. And I don't understand why education is not using this yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, the work of Bruce says that kids under the age of 7 are in that state all of the time. And the opposite side of using it, well, if only they were so aware of it as the implications of how the current system exists and is not nurturing the theta state brains of the under sevens.
Exactly. And that's why it's also so dangerous in a way, because they're sponges at that, the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
really, there's no conscious level to bypass. It goes straight to the subconscious as
yeah,
a core belief. And that's
yeah.
why when you say to a kid, well, you're good at nothing, he's going to spend his whole adulthood
Mm.
trying to convince himself that he's good at nothing.
Yeah, I love that I saw you being interviewed or sharing a testimony for the guy that did the music, and I know that you talked about having a real high standard or a vision for the orchestral music that you wanted, and I love that because there's something powerful about like if ever I've done meditation, I've always sought like a cosmic sound. I don't know why. It's just what really resonates, and for me, like what comes to life is not just the cosmos, but like I have this image now of the Book of Revelation, which is like you've got all these saints that are bowing before. Like I obviously have Christ on a throne in my imagery, but I just see this huge council of heaven coming down in just awe and worship and just gratitude, and that's what that crazy orchestral cosmic thing does for me. It just takes me into a heart space of like like, and then I receive that. Do you know what I mean? Like I get up and I receive a level of light, of that frequency of just love and healing and gratitude, and I can't help but just walk away off that mat. Just I don't do it enough, if I'm honest. I don't do it enough, but when I do, it's like that's what that's powerful.
It's beautiful, and you're able to access that state, which is not the case of many people. And that's why we use orchestral music also to really carry that emotion. We have, you have the vision, which is like the intention of like, where do I want to go, and that vision that you're visualizing. But if you don't put an emotion to it, associated to it, it's almost like if you're just steering the wheel in your car, but you're not putting like your foot on the gas pedal, right? So you're not going anywhere. It's the emotion that really brings you there, brings things into your outer reality. And some people can actually generate that emotion because they have an easy access to that path, because in their childhood they had access to that path. They had parents that were sensitive to that, experiences that really allowed them to know that way. But some people are very stuck in that. It's almost like a protection, a shield. They
Yeah,
can't get
yeah.
to their heart. And so using orchestral music actually really helps carry that emotion and amplifies the power of those visualizations and those intentions that we have.
Hmm. Powerful. And again, it comes back to what we said at the start, is that many people don't have an experience of what that's like. Therefore, their current existence just feels normal. It's not normal. It's not what we're here to do. And so much of this is available and accessible to us all. You've got the app. How can people work with you individually, personally?
We are actually launching a 4-month healing program. We don't know if we're going to call it a healing program yet, but it's really going to be to help you master that environment outside of you and within you. It's going to be launched the 1st of February.
Right.
For now, we have a meditation program that's been launched where I explain what meditation is in a meditation masterclass with a 30-day challenge that is based with, like, the support is the app. The meditations are in the app. And then we also have an abundance program of a week where I manifested this office behind me that is like 300 meters square with an amazing team in 3 days during the abundance program. And actually it's live. Like on the opening session, I explain the tools I'm going to use. I explain my vision, I explain my 6 criteria. And on the Sunday, I reveal live also to everyone that every 6 of the criteria was met, which was impossible. It was impossible criteria. So it's just playing with the laws of the universe and playing with this new rule book, and every day discovering how much more powerful can I get. And it's
How powerful.
intoxicating because you go from a complete 180, right? From I'm sick, I'm weak, this happened to me, to, well, this happened for me and I'm actually creating the life of my
Well,
dreams.
there's a wonderful balance between accountability and responsibility. It's like, okay, now I know the possibility that this can create. I'm both accountable and responsible for my thoughts, my feelings, my actions, because I know how powerful I am. And most people don't get to that state because they're like Marianne Williamson says, actually the real thing is that you're scared of how powerful we could be.
Exactly, exactly. And I think a lot of people just don't know which way to start.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
way
yeah.
to, we get overwhelmed by so many, an overload of information really in our world. And we just don't know how to start, where to start, we're exhausted. And until it's actually, we are frozen and our body's like, you have to change to continue. We just continue the same because it's comfort, right? Like we
Mhm.
love doing the same over and over again. This is just how we are as human beings. We save energy doing that.
Mm. I have a word here always better than yesterday. It's called Heartprint, and the word really symbolizes the ripple effect that we have on other people, the possibilities that we create in other people's lives. And Julie, you've lived, an incredibly painful and suffering existence for a long time, and now you're healed and you're doing great things. Like, let's just project another 30, 40 years in the future. Like, what do you really hope that your Heartprint will be?
Did you say 30 to 40? Yeah.
50 if 60.
Um, I don't know. I just wanna. I don't have this massive scale in my mind. When we launched Envol with Tim, we said if we can help at least one person, it will be worth it. Because as you say, there's a ripple effect. So that person is going to help others. We're actually hosting retreats. We hosted 5 retreats in the span of 1 year, of 13 months, and seeing the transformation at the individual level and seeing how they influence others, that's just the best mission in the world. It's just, and for me that's enough. I think I also learned how to go away from that productivity mindset of always wanting to achieve more and be more. And I'm like, well, my goal in life is being really content with where I am. And if I'm operating from my heart and my core values, then I'll never be wrong. And that's beautiful. So that's a little bit what I have. If I'm helping people on a daily basis, even if it's just a small number of people, I know that I'm doing something that's contributing. And I want to see, let's say in 40 years, 50 years, I want to see more people. I want to see medicine, like my big goal is to see the future of medicine really being more into this emotional, energetic healing, and working hand in hand with people instead of against. In France, especially, there's a witch hunt against everything that's in that field, a little bit alternative. And I want to see them working hand in hand and seeing more people empowered and actually exploring what we don't even know we can do yet. That's my goal in yeah, in the
Love
future.
it. How can people get in touch? How can they contact you? How can they follow your journey and get involved and download the app
So my
maybe?
Instagram is Julie with Joy. It was Julie's Healing first, and I changed it to Julie's with Joy because words have frequencies, right? So that was really
Yeah.
important for me to stay out of that illness mindset
Yes.
and identity.
Yes.
So Julie with Joy, the app is Envol.app. You can download it there. You can try everything you have like a free trial. And maybe Ryan, I can give you a code also that people can download it for 30 days for free. You could
Very
share it
kind of you.
in the description without commitments. And yeah, that's
Love
about
it.
it.
Julie, thank you for sharing your heart and your mind with us. Be honored if you'd leave us a final thought from your good self.
Um, yeah, I think it really resonates with your core mission. You really lead from your heart. We're too much in our brain. Our heart is, we are people who feel, literally we send more signals from our heart to our brain every day. So try to be less in your mind, in your thoughts, in your brain, and more in your heart, because you cannot go wrong when you do that. You cannot go wrong.
Love it. Julie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hey, my friends, thank you for making it to the end. I hope that our time spent together today has left you a little bit better than before you push play. I'd really appreciate if you just took a moment to leave a review to allow me to meet more people where they are and hopefully leave them a little bit better too. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organisation, then head to alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com to connect. And while you're there, let me know 1 or 2 things that you're going to do as a result of listening to this conversation. I absolutely love hearing your thoughts, your reflections, and the things that this spark in your own heart and mind. If you want more insights from my heart and mind, I do send out short episodes on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and again, I hope that they serve you well. I appreciate you listening. I'm Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast, a podcast for heart-centered leaders just like you. Keep leading, my friends. Always love.